So connected with the whole COVID thing is it caused me and I think many other people to look into different ideas about what is a virus. This also has deeper implications as to how our reality experience is created in the way that you often teach. So there's the terrain theory and there's the viral theory. And the viral theory, what our mainstream science ascribes to, is that a virus is the physical organism that can pass from person to person in this microscopic entity. But the terrain theory is saying that it's all about the state of health of the individual organism, the body, and that you don't get sick from external viruses. It's all about sicknesses arising from within. And to me, that theory sounds a lot more accurate to how I've learned the actual metaphysics of reality work. What do you have to say about these two paradigms?
Sure, sure. So we'll again just bring into the equation the world you're already familiar with to show you our perspective on this particular line of inquiry. So let's say there were a person whom wanted to meet the president of the United States. Now, can this person in your society just open the door to the Oval Office and make it into the president's quarters and interact with them?
No.
They would have to go through security checks. They would have to get through multiple buildings and checkpoints before they get even remotely close to the president. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
All of these security guards, all of these checkpoints, all of these different buildings they have to move through. This is the immune system of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So when your body is healthy, a pathogen can't just get to the core. It can't just get to the president. It has to go through all of these different security stops. It has to go through all of these different checkpoints. And it's very likely that on the way to that president, it gets found out, it gets caught, and it's dealt with. This is how your body works when it is healthy. When you have a healthy body, you apprehend the things that are attempting to get to the core or the leader or the vital essence of who and what you are. But when the body is weak, it's like the Secret Service is drunk. When the body's weak, it's like, well, there's no one really manning the security checkpoints. You can kind of go through if you want. No one will stop you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's like when the body's weak. So yes, from our perspective, terrain theory is much more aligned with the underlying nature of how your body functions and how wellness is achieved.
But you would say that there is some truth to the viral theory as it pertains to the physical reality.
Well, there's some truth to it, yes. But you have to keep in mind what the greater truth is. And that is when the body is in a state of vitality and balance, sure, there might be people whom are attempting to create harm, but those people are quickly apprehended, just as is the case in your external human society. There's tons of people whom are likely to create harm, but they do not, because there are guidelines, infrastructure, security measures within the society that are maintained, and it keeps those forces at bay. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And the areas where those forces are not kept at bay, this is where there are unmet needs in the society. This is where there are imbalances in the society, and that's where you have these opportunistic assaults that take place, where there are imbalances in the society. That's like your immune system. If there's certain parts of your life that are imbalanced, if there's certain dimensions within the self that are unhealed, if there's holes in the fence, so to say, then that could be an opportunistic infection or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
So if, in other words, if you're making sure all of your needs are met physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, you create a type of terrain where there's not really an opportunity for assaults or things like that to happen, for illness to take place. You sort of removed the opportunity for that to manifest.
Yeah, and of course, in our society, we have so many pollutants and toxins in our bodies, in our water, our air, our food. And so most human beings are really in a state of not being, as you say, having all those, the immune system very healthy. So we were ripe for a worldwide kind of pandemic
Yes.
like that.
Yes, precisely.
Mm.
Precisely. But if these needs are met, if you cleanse your bodies, if you fortify your diets, if you change your relationship to stressors and things like this, you'll find you won't be so susceptible to these things. And then worldwide pandemics can become a thing of the past. They don't have to be a cyclical lesson. So it's really an invitation to take one's health more seriously, but to recognize that health is much more than meeting certain standards on a laboratory exam. Health comes from really creating within yourself and within the world around you goodness. When you're
Mm.
creating a life that you feel good about and you're helping others to do the same, you're creating a life of vitality and a life of health, because it's not just dependent on you. It's something that's involving more people.
Yeah. And I also wonder with this COVID thing, how creative the human collective consciousness is, that people were getting this message from their media that there's this virus and to be afraid and, lock down and wear a mask. How much of this was our consciousness creating a worldwide pandemic because we were sort of hypnotized or prompted in our subconscious to create that?
Sure, sure. Yes. So we'll talk about like this. You have the idea of the reality of what the situation was, and then what we would describe as the meta reality. This is the hyper reality, the reality created upon it. So, yes, there was an extra layer of reality created upon what you would consider to be the COVID-19 virus. And this did reinforce, you could say, the spreading of the virus.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It had a direct level of involvement in terms of the duration of the pandemic, in terms of the severity of the pandemic. It was its own reality that people fed into, that created effects that may not even have been relevant otherwise in terms of the experience.
Mhm.
So, yes, the hyper reality created upon the COVID-19 pandemic was very much alive and created loss of life. It created the idea of loss of business. Many of the imbalances that your society experienced came from this extra layer and level of reality that was essentially engineered by the mainstream media.